Welcome to the Strong Youth Project, where our mission is to improve organized sport experiences for youth, parents, coaches, and other mentors via education and evidence-based practice.
Okay, you guys hear me okay? Great. I am super excited to be here. I am grateful for Matt Seeley. He was my neighbor for like 10 years in Spanish Fork. And we sat together a lot on like the sidelines. And so grateful that he asked me, and I'm excited for this field and the project that we're doing together. Today I'm going to talk about body image and self-esteem in adolescent athletes. And I wanted to start with a clip, and I think that Matt did a nice job of introducing this as well. Okay, so this is from one of my favorite shows. It's from Parenthood, like the old Parenthood movie that the Parenthood TV show was based on. And let me just figure this out. Hold up. Okay, and I think that I need to start at like... Okay, so as you're watching, I want you to so we're going to talk about self-esteem first, and we're going to talk about body image. As you're watching, I want you to look at the people on the field, right? People on the field, people off the field, and think about how each of them is going to contribute to Kevin. Kevin is like the kid, Kevin's self-esteem, okay? We're going to see good behavior, we're going to see bad behavior.
Okay, one more out, guys. Let's go. How's your arm, Sean? Not too tired? Hey, Gil, are boys finally going to win one game?
Way to be supportive, Lou.
That's right, Way to go, Tommy. All right.
All right, Anna. We got bases loaded. We're only one run down. Now, you can do it. Get up there. Come on now.
Please, God, let him win one game.
Why'd you make me play second base?
Okay. I was Kevin as a softball player. Like they would put me in right field and I literally could not do anything. So I feel that. You feel that deep here. We saw some really good behavior, right? That's his dad and the coach. There's a whole lesson could be taught about that. Really supportive, it's okay. And then we see some parents, right, who are really problematic, and then the players on the team who are also problematic. So how is Kevin going to feel about this experience? Is sport going to be a good experience for his self-esteem right now? No. Terrible. Okay. All right. So basic definition of self-esteem, overall value that one places on the self as a person. So I study the self as part of my research. I have whole lectures on the self. Self-concept is like who you think you are, right? What makes you you? And your self-esteem is how you feel about that person. So that could include things like, I'm an athlete, like I'm a football player. Like that could be a part of your self-concept. Self-esteem is how you feel about that person, right? It involves feelings of self-worth, self-acceptance, and self-respect. And we want kids to have good self-esteem. It's associated with really positive outcomes later on in life. If you study middle childhood, self-esteem is not just one thing. It's lots of different things. So you can feel really good about yourself and the way you look, or maybe your academic achievement. It's interesting here that sports and physical activity is placed as one of those main areas for the development of self-esteem, right there. Okay, so we know, and Matt touched on this, that playing athletics is related to higher self-esteem, or at least it can be. So on the whole, sports can be such a good thing for developing kids' version of themselves and then also how they feel about that. We know that some athletes are involved in risky behavior, but if those athletes have self-esteem, risky behavior like substance use, delinquency, and so on goes down. We also know that some athletes tend to struggle in school, but if those athletes have good self-esteem, school performance goes up. So self-esteem really seems to be good for all sorts of outcomes in life, and particularly for athletes. So we definitely want to encourage it. So how do we do that? Avoid these type of behaviors. So these are kind of no-nos. And again, throwing lawn chairs, like Matt said, is not on my list, but should be, right? Number one is social comparisons. So I study social media and social comparisons on social media specifically, right? And we know that we compare ourselves so much to people online. And when we do that, we tend to feel like we're not good enough. So as parents and coaches, one of the worst things you can do is to overtly compare somebody to somebody else, right? How come you're not as fast as so-and-so? How come you don't work as hard as so-and-so? How come you didn't catch the ball like so-and-so, right? We really got to avoid those kind of things. Focusing on the win alone, right? So we must win this, nothing else matters. I don't know if you ever had a coach that said that to you, or had a coach that's all about the win. We know sports involvement is so much more than just the win. When my kid plays a game, so my 13-year-old, Aiden, his picture's on the last slide, he's really into sports, he's really into soccer. This year they've not won a single game, right? And something I say is, did you have fun? That's what I say every day, every time he plays. Did you have fun? Usually it's yes. And if it's no, I say, did you learn something? Yeah, I did. Well, that's the win right there, right? That's the kind of behavior we need to model. Avoid disparaging athletes at all costs. So, you were lazy, what is wrong with you? I just had an experience with my son's team. The head coach wasn't there. Head coach is amazing. The assistant coach took over, they lost. It was a hard loss, and he spent 10 minutes just telling them how bad they were and how crappy they were, and they didn't work hard enough, and how disappointed he was in them. I was so angry. This is not what it's about. This is not it. As unreasonable expectations, so we're having 3 practices a day, and I don't care if it's 110 degrees out, right? So sometimes coaches can have unrealistic expectations for kids that set them up to fail. Like nobody can have 3 practices a day in 110 degrees and be physically and mentally okay after that. And then, last one is losing your cool as a coach or a parent. So it's like, what are we modeling? What are we teaching? What message are we sending here? Here's some things. Here's some like how-tos, right? Some good things. So respond to children's needs with warmth. And I should say all of these just apply to self-esteem in general. So if you're like, okay, how do I encourage self-esteem in general? This is it. But let's apply it to like an athletic context. So respond to children's needs with warmth. Man, have you ever been at like or been an athlete as like a first or a second or a third grader, and you have parents or coaches that are yelling at kids or yelling at the other team or, things like that? No, right? Little kids deserve, and big kids deserve to be loved and taken care of and responded to with warmth. Express delight in early accomplishments. Self-esteem doesn't really develop until the age of about 7 to 8. And so if you're coaching really, really young kids, delight in those accomplishments. You are fantastic. You're wonderful. You did such a good job. All those things. Focus on effort, process, and progress. This applies to grades, and it applies to sports too. It applies to practices. It applies to games. Are we developing as a team? We didn't win, but are we developing? Did we work hard? Yes. Set reasonable expectations and provide support and encouragement, right? So reasonable expectations for the developmental level of the child here. Provide honest feedback with age and maturity. As a coach, you need to have that honest feedback. The experience I had with my son's team where the assistant coach was going crazy, I actually had another one who was there, and he just works for shooters, and he's part of the Strong Youth Project. I don't know if he's here. But he, after the first coach, railed on the kids. He had a different talk with them, and I was so impressed. And then what I noticed is that about 6 kids later came to him and said, Coach, I'm struggling with this aspect of my game. Tell me what I can do to do better. Not a single one went to the mean coach. They all went to this coach who was encouraging, right? He had the impact. Provide freedom to make choices and fail. So what this means is if your kid has played soccer their whole life and they're like, I want to try basketball. And you're like, you are the shortest kid in class. Might be a disaster. That's okay. Try it. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Do not make your love conditional. Oh my gosh, I've seen some parents. Man, I struggle so much with parents that do this, right? Your kid's out there, they're working hard, they have a bad day, they fail, parent withdraws love. Do not make your love conditional on your child's athletic performance. And then focus on self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the belief that I can achieve, yeah? Belief that I can do something. It matters far more than feeling good about myself, the belief that I can achieve. So I wanted to talk briefly to the athletes in the rooms themselves, just really quick. So that was kind of more for parents and for coaches and administrators. But maybe you're an athlete right now and you're like, I'm struggling. It could be I'm struggling with who I am as an athlete. It could just be I'm struggling with who I am as a person. These are some really attractive pictures of me at age about 13, 14. I had to wear headgear. You guys, you don't even know. Those of you with braids, you don't even know. Headgear was terrible. I was not the prettiest girl in class. I really struggled with self-esteem. I was the skinny little thing. People would make fun of me as I walked down the halls. I was terrible at sports. My mother was an amazing athlete, played 3 sports in high school in the 70s. And she's like, what is wrong with you? Right, so it's fine. So I understand how that feels, to feel like you are not good enough, not pretty enough, not strong enough, right, at whatever you're doing. If you're there, I hold space for you and validate those feelings. Being a teenager is hard. Being an athlete is hard. So here are some research-backed ways to develop positive self-esteem. Really, we need like 6 weeks to talk about each one of these things. But, I'll talk about a little bit in turn. So number 1 is develop healthy relationships. So surround yourselves with people that make you feel good about yourself. That's something I tell my kids all the time. Does this friend build you up? Or are they the type of friend that tears you down? Maybe think about expanding your friend group, right? Do you have a coach that builds you up, that makes you want to be a better person, right? That loves you for you? If not, maybe reconsider what's going on here. Set realistic goals for ourselves. We often, especially as athletes, and perfectionism is highly related to athleticism, we set these unrealistic goals for ourselves that when we don't meet, then we feel bad, right? Set achievable goals, achievable and measurable. Self-compassion is there. So self-compassion is I can love myself for who I am, even when I fail, even when I lose, even when I don't win. Self-compassion, and this is linked with self-talk, like I am worthy of love. I am worthy of trust. I am worthy of support, right? Saying those things to yourself is so positive. Self-discovery involves, again, that not just early specialization, but trying new things. I have a daughter that I'll talk about in a minute. She spent her whole life playing soccer and gymnastics and cheerleading. And last year, she signed up for the wrestling team. And I was like, you're going from cheerleading to wrestling? Like, what is this? And it ended up being so positive, right? She's a high schooler. It ended up being so cool for her. Okay, positive self-talk. Oh, I missed self-care. Self-care is making sure that you have enough sleep, which Kara's going to talk about in another session here, right? Making sure you have enough nutrition, making sure that you have got the space and the time for yourself, that you feel like a balanced human, so that you can then go perform on the field. Learn coping skills. So, that can be all sorts of different things, whether that's talking to a trusted friend, whether that is some meditation, self-calming techniques, fill in the blank, whatever it is for you that's healthy coping skills. And then seek professional help if you need to, right? Some of us really struggle for self-esteem, and even after trying all those things, you're like, I'm still feeling really depressed. I'm still feeling really anxious. I'm still feeling really low. You might need a little help, and that is okay. I've been there myself. These are other pictures of me. I took a picture of this. It's in my scrapbook that I literally scrapbooked by hand in the year 2000. I went on. I luckily, my teeth got straight. I got out of the headgear. I got contacts. And I found sport, right? I didn't find sport, and I didn't get good at it until I was about 10th or 11th grade. As an 11th grader, I said, I'm going to try out for the tennis team. And I'd never played tennis before. And I went to Payson High School, and Payson is not known for their sports, if I'm being honest, so I got on the varsity team, which was great. But I lost every single match but one, but that became part of my identity. I was like, I'm a tennis player. That's who I am. I played my senior year. I played singles that year, singles varsity. I lost every game but one. That's part of who I was. And I actually got a summer job after that, working at a camp as a camp counselor, teaching youth how to play tennis. It's where I met my husband, actually. I know. He was a soccer coach, so really, really fun. So again, sport has this beautiful capacity to increase self-esteem and identity if we allow it. Okay, what I want to talk about now is body image and youth athlete development. Okay, I'll play another clip for you. Let's see. This is from Bring It On. It might have profanity, so I'm going to try to block it out. Yeah. Okay, Bring It On is a cheerleader movie. How many of you have seen Bring It On? So funny. Okay, cheerleader movie. This is a guy that's coming in to coach these guys. This is a how not to make positive body image for your team.
You have weak ankles. One of your calves is bigger than the other. Too much makeup. Not enough makeup. What's with the skin? Say it with me. Sunlight. Male cheerleaders. Enough said. Smile. Don't smile.
Okay. Okay, hold up. Hold up. Okay. So don't do that as a coach, right? But we've all got insecurities. I wish I could have a conversation with each one of you and say, what is your insecurity, right? It's such a journey in terms of the development of love for your body. It takes some time. I've done hundreds of interviews with women and men around developing body image, and I'm telling you, nobody's got it figured out. We're all figuring it out together, and it is such a journey here. All right, we know that youth especially suffer from body image problems. Here's just some statistics for you I'll run through. Between 4 to 20% of young women practice unhealthy patterns of dieting, purging, and binge eating. We know that eating disorders are most common in adolescents and young adult women. So around anorexia is a disorder where you severely limit food intake. 4% around females, 0.3% among males. Bulimia is binging and then purging, throwing up. 3% of females, 1% of males. Anorexia has the highest fatality rate of any psychological disorder. About 20% of people with anorexia will die from it. We need to prevent eating disorders. We need to do better. There are huge emotional, relational, and social consequences for those with body image problems. So this is something that I think we cannot talk about enough. So let's talk about body image and athletes. So we know that athletics can promote positive body image, right? You're getting stronger, and you're growing, and you're developing. Maybe you're doing really well in your sport. We know that athletes can have better body image than non-athletes. That is great news. So we want to encourage that as much as possible here. The research on gender suggests that female athletes have far worse body dissatisfaction than male athletes. There's a huge gender component here. We know that some certain sports tend to be more problematic than others. So sports that focus on leanness and the thin ideal tend to be related to higher levels of body dissatisfaction and eating disorders. So male wrestlers have the highest number of eating disorders of any male, pretty much, right? We find them most in male wrestlers, right? It's all about kind of cutting weight and so on. This is my daughter. She actually got 5th in state last year in wrestling. I'm super proud of her. She worked so hard. But we're actually going to be starting a study about body image in female wrestlers. No one has ever done it before. Here's my research assistants. Raise your hand, research assistants. Yes, thanks for coming. So we're going to start this study because it's such a mixed bag. So with female wrestlers, on one hand, it is such an empowering sport, right? We're going to look at empowerment, we're going to look at feminism, all of these like good things. And then it's like, yeah, I'm the heavyweight and the state champion. Everybody knows that I weigh 170 pounds. I'm owning it. I'm strong. I'm beautiful. I hear that talk. So I feel like there could be like this really powerful piece to wrestling for girls. On the other hand, right, I watch the girls wrestle. We're cutting weight all the time. I don't know if any of you wrestle yourselves or you've been around wrestlers. It's all about cutting weight and making weight. They'll weigh themselves 2 to 3 times a day, restricting food, all of those kind of things. So I think that there could be some leaning here for eating disorders. So whatever your sport is, think about, okay, does this encourage development of positive body image or not? We know that aesthetic sports also tend to be way more at risk than non-aesthetic sports. So we see high levels of body dissatisfaction and eating disorders in dancers, figure skaters, cheerleading, and gymnasts as well, right? So we got to really think about what the culture is around these sports, and that is set by parents, coaches, and the athletes themselves. I also want to talk a little bit about the muscular ideal. So I study the muscular ideal. We have the thin ideal, right, which is like for women, it's epitomized in media. We have this very like thin, particular body shape. For men, it's the muscular ideal. We see it in superhero culture, right? These like ripped guys, and it feeds into athletics. It's all about building muscle, which is important, but looking good, right? We know that people who internalize the muscular ideal as kind of the one body type tend to have lower levels of body dissatisfaction, lower self-esteem, psychological disorders like depression, behavioral outcomes like excessive exercising, right? So I don't know if you've ever been around someone or were that person yourself who feel like, I gotta build up. So you're exercising, and then you get injured. And then we also, it's related to increased use of anabolic steroids, which is a host of problematic issues there. So can impact both women and men. So what I want to talk about in my last little bit is how we can create cultures in athletics that promote positive body image. So this is a great study. It was a qualitative study of parents, coaches, and teenage athletes themselves. It talks about 4 different areas, okay? So as I talk about each one in turn, I want you to think about what sport you play or coach or involved in or the players that you have in the space of your life, right? How is the culture around these things? Okay, so number 1, eliminating body image stigma. So, and they list some ideas. So create more awareness of resources. There's so many resources to promote positive body image. And so do you make those available to the people on your team? Do you have those conversations? Do we create safe, judgment-free environments where we can talk openly about the way we feel? This is like really, really important in those aesthetic sports especially. Facilitate conversations with peers, peer groups, and experienced peer counselors. And establish links between sport organizations and health and support centers, right? So do we have somebody that comes and talks to the team about body image? I'm curious, has anyone played a sport where you have somebody that comes and talks to your team about body image? Just raise your hand. 0 people. Okay, that's low. I'd say that's a low number. Okay, I think we can do better. Okay, reconsidering uniforms and sport attire. So this is especially mentioned by women here. So offer a variety of uniform sizes and styles. Is there variability in shirt and short length that I can choose from? Offer opportunity to privately try on uniform samples before selecting uniform sizes. All these are things that are mentioned, right, by coaches and athletes. Offer additional backup sizes should uniform needs change over the course of the season. And the design sport attire that better fits the bodies of adolescent girl athletes. So they're not unisex styles, right? They're made to fit women's bodies and girls' bodies. Okay, number 3 is top to bottom, everyone has a role. So referees, I don't know, do we have any referees, or do we have anyone who's ever reffed in this? Okay, yes, a couple of you, all right. I'm talking to you guys, yeah? All right. Communicate expectations to member of the sport environment. And whether that's parents, You're not going to yell. You're not going to scream at these kids. And if you are, you're out of there, right? Specifically around body image as well. You'll hear parents or coaches make comments about athletes' bodies. That is not okay. We got to stop that kind of stuff. Coaches use appropriate communication styles with players. So the clip I showed you from Bring It On, that would be an inappropriate communication style with players. Education and training for coaches on appropriate communication with specific considerations to body image. Again, I'm guessing we don't have a single coach in here that's received training on those type of things. Ensure that facilities, websites, and social media channels include visual representations of diverse body types, right? So you have, if you're in charge of the social media channel for the softball team, make sure that there's diverse body types shown. And we celebrate all body types. Okay, and then parents remain critical of the sport environment and its effects on their child. If it is having a negative effect on the child's well-being, work with them to change the environment or remove them from the environment. I have researched body image for a really long time, and I've talked to a lot of, mostly girls, but some boys around body image. We can and we must do better here. Okay, and the last one is body positive role modeling. So expose adolescent girl athletes to positive role models. My favorite athlete is Serena Williams. I love her. I love her. I love her. She's so amazing. She's so great. And I love this picture of her. This is her on the beach just chilling with her family. You'll notice she does not have a stick-thin body shape, right? And her thighs have cellulite, which is, I think 80% of girls and women have cellulite. But a lot of girls and women feel really ashamed about that and not show it. Literally, the best female athlete on the planet is out there loving her body and showing it, right? That's the kind of message that we need to be sending, right? Okay. Focus on skill rather than appearance. There's a really wonderful book by the Kite sisters called More Than a Body. It's all about developing positive body image. And they have this saying, right? Your body is an instrument, not an ornament. Your body is an instrument, not an ornament. So focusing on what you can do, focusing on the amazing things that your body can do, as opposed to, right, what it looks like. I remember my daughter, right, my wrestling daughter, in the 3rd grade, she had a friend that said, your thighs are really big. Those girls are kind of mean. She came home sad. My mom, so-and-so said my thighs are really big. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're 8. And I said, what can your thighs do? She was really into gymnastics at the time. They help me, spring off the ground to do a back handspring. They help me run really, really fast. Yeah, your thighs are big because they're powerful. And that is such a good, amazing thing for you. I love that. Help to facilitate conversations, dispel stigmas, and foster normalization around body image in sport. Again, are we having those conversations here? Contest inequalities in sport. There are so many inequalities that still exist around sport, around men and women, and around the different sports themselves. Are we contesting those? Are we having those conversations? Support the notion that a variety of body types have a place in high-performance sport. It is not just a singular type. Okay, so those are some tips and ideas around how to increase body image and self-esteem in athletes and among yourselves. I want to end with one last thing. I show a documentary in one of my classes. It's called The Masculine. It's all about masculinity. It's fantastic. But there's a part from speaking about athletics and coaches that I want to just end with, about the cultures we can create if we're intentional about doing this. You're going to need to give me just a hot second here, if that's okay. All right, and I'm going to start at 50. Sorry, I meant to have this up here. Okay. So this is a coach. Coaches are such a mixed bag. And my kids have had fantastic coaches, and they have had coaches that I think are really, really toxic. If we can change the culture around athletics, that's going to change lives here. Okay.
Drive, lock out. Set, head. 1, 2, 3, cut. All right, good job. Balls to your right.
I think the great myth in America today is that sports builds character. Sports does not build character unless a coach intentionally teaches it and models it. When I did start coaching, I didn't want to be a transactional coach using kids for my own identity. So I just started with a very simple philosophy. If you're going to be a transformational coach, you've got to know what you're transforming. I coach to help boys become men of empathy and integrity who will be responsible and change the world for good. Now, that's what sports ought to be about. And we've got a lot of work to do in this country.
Okay. So I love his challenge to us at the very end, right? We have a lot of work to do in this country. I'm grateful to be involved in the Strong Youth Project, who are really trying to change the culture around sports to improve self-esteem and body image, among many other things. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, so we've got 10, 15 minutes for questions. Yes, go ahead.
So what recommendation do you have? I'm a parent and I have a high school athlete.
Yeah.
I have one coach who just is a screaming, yelling, screaming. And I don't want to drop out of the sport, and I have talked to the high school athletic director about it. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. It's a really hard situation. You also might be worried that, like, if you say something, then your kid's going to be unfairly treated on the field, right? Do you have a comment? Oh, yes. The question was, what do you do if you have a coach that continually screams, right, and so on? Yes. Okay, so I think what you did first is great. So talk to the athletic director, right, because they ultimately have the power to either get that coach out of there or to talk to them or to put them on probation or whatever, right? The other thing that's powerful is if more than one parent speaks up, right? So if there are other parents on the team that feel the same way, if a lot of them are speaking up and speaking out, I think that's helpful. And if the kids themselves, and this would take some bravery, right? Maybe talk to another coaching staff and say, we don't like the culture that is happening. We want it to be better. What can we do to improve the culture? Here are some things that we thought we could do as a team, but let's talk about the coaching as well. And then, let me think what else. That's kind of maybe where I would start. I know that in Spanish Fork, which is where Matt's kids go to and play soccer, right, there was a really toxic coach there for the girls' soccer team. Would call the girls terrible, terrible, terrible names, and the kids and parents banded together, and eventually the coach was dismissed. And so, yeah, coaching is a privilege. Coaching is a privilege, and it should be treated as such. And so I think we need to hold them to a higher standard. So I don't know if that's helpful. Does anyone have any other comments of things that have worked with you when you've had a kind of an abusive, toxic coach? Okay. Great. Okay, other questions? Yeah.
What would be your advice if you have like family member or someone who like doesn't do sport because of body image?
Yeah. That is such a good question. Okay, so the question was, see how I'm catching on? What would you do if you have somebody who doesn't play a sport because of body image, right? So I think first of all, I would focus in on trying to understand why, right? Asking a lot of questions about what's going on in their own body, yeah? And trying to build that up first before just throwing them into like cheerleading or something. I feel like that's disastrous. So really, really trying to tackle what's behind the poor body image first, right? Is it a lack of self-esteem? Is it social comparisons on social media? Is it poor relationships with parents? You know, a lot of body esteem is a reflection of something bigger that's going on. So think about that. And then maybe once you work on that, you can certainly do many, many things that can improve body esteem that's not like a high-level sport. So there's some really cool studies about yoga and body esteem, body image, right? Yoga's not a really competitive sport to my knowledge, right? But it's something you can do with your body that helps it get stronger, and then it's associated with increased body image over time. You know, things like running or, you know, things that are more individual, that are non-competitive, I would focus in on those first, right, to build that power in my own body. And then you can go on to competitive sports afterwards if you like. Any other, yeah, I'd love to hear from this audience as well. Like, yeah, go ahead. Do you have any other ideas?
Good question. One I thought a lot about with those I work with. One thing I sometimes try, depending on the personality, is talking about, yeah, you feel this, but do you want it enough to be brave to do it anyway?
Right.
So like that kind of talking about like, hey, it's going to take courage for you to go out there, but are you willing to do it anyway?
Yeah.
So talking about, because we might always have an issue, but are we going to let that hold us back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like building resilience and then also empowering youth kind of to make those decisions. I watch these wrestlers, right? And those wrestling uniforms are tight, right? They show everything. And right, these big girls go out and they wrestle. And it's a struggle and a challenge, but when they can do it, it's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying one thing when you're talking about running, for example, just changing expectations, having more realistic goals. That I'm reading a book called Spark, and basically this PE coach, he's trying to change like what PE is.
Yeah. Yes.
What he does is, kids who are consistently coming in last, and you could look at him and say, why are you so slow? But instead he puts a heart rate monitor on all the kids, and he notices even though kids that are coming in first and running a mile, their heart rate is significantly lower than the kids that are coming in last. And so for him it was a way to show that like their effort was just as much, and so to validate different aspects of an activity.
Yeah, I love that, right? That fits in with the social comparison stuff. So like just focusing on your own goals. Like, okay, what am I going to try to do? I might come in 25th, right? But did I beat my time by a second? That's a win for me, right? I love that. And I love the modeling of the PE teacher. Okay, other questions? Yeah, we'll go there and then we'll go there. Go ahead.
So I grew up as a dancer, so body image was a huge
Yes.
thing. And a lot of times, a lot of like girls I would dance with would make comments being like, oh, my mom wants me to look good in my costume. Oh my gosh. So I'm not going to eat this or eat this. And so I was wondering, like, what's the best way as like a parent or a coach to encourage healthy eating, but also still allow that freedom that they're not so worried about?
Oh my gosh. So we've done research about parents' body image and then parent talk and how that relates to child body image. It's one of the strongest predictors, right? So if you have a parent that is focused on their own body image and making comments about their weight and constantly dieting and things like that, kids are more likely to be focused on it as well. So that's one thing as a parent to avoid. And then certainly making comments about your child's body. My mother, I've got a sister who's 15 months younger than me, and she's just got a different body size and shape than me. And she would tell her, why can't you be thin like your sister? Ooh, from like age 7. And I love my mom. I love her. She is a good mother, but boy, that stung, right? And my sister still really struggles with those kind of things. So really avoiding, yes. And then just celebrating. Oh my gosh, celebrating bodies for every single shape and size. Dancing is not about looking good in a uniform. It is about athleticism and jumping and spinning and joy. I dance. I get so much joy from dancing, right? And so we can focus in on that aspect. That's where we go. Love that. Okay, over here, question?
Yes, how do you change the expectation for older teenagers that might have a physical disability, but they have that mental ideal of the muscular ideal?
Yeah.
So that they physically can't lift and look like what they see, but yet they strive for that. How do you change that?
Yeah, this is really difficult, and I'm living it. So my wrestling daughter, has something called Ehlers-Danlos disorder. It's a connective tissue disorder. It causes chronic pain, joint instability, injury, and so on. So she's got a physical disability that we're working with. And we have these conversations all the time because she wants to be muscular. She wants to be the best, right? And so we talk a lot about rest. We talk a lot about listening to your body. We talk a lot about setting expectations that are achievable. And then when she does get injured because she pushes herself too hard, we really revisit, right? She's also got a therapist that is working with her because she's so driven and she loves sports so much, but she's got this disability that prevents her from going where she needs to, and that's really difficult. And so she's needed a little bit of professional help to go through that. So that's just on a personal level. This is not research backed at all, but we're living it. And I'd love to hear from anyone else in the room, maybe who are working with athletes who are on that same journey. If anyone else would like to share. And it's also about learning to find joy, even when you can't perform at the level you want to, right? This life is not all about sports, right? It's about living a balanced, beautiful life. Sports can be a part of it. We want to be strong, but we can be strong in multiple ways. So I also encourage things like she sings, she's in the choir, she plays the violin, all those other things that are less taxing on her body. How can we find joy in that? But I'm with you. It's hard, and it's a daily struggle for us right now. Okay, go ahead.
This is just kind of a thought on that. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever gone to Special Olympics and watched the disabled do stuff.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to go to that. If you have somebody that might have those positive as a self-esteem, those things on that, go watch those guys. Just one event and just watch how excited they get. They don't worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And like the day-to-day, so Hannah worries a lot about her future. A lot of Ehlers-Danlos people end up with in a wheelchair or with splints, things like that. And so let's take it one day at a time, There's lots of ways to compete athletically. It might look a little different than you expect, but we're not going to worry about that now. Let's focus on today. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, question or comment? Yeah, new question.
What are some of the questions you ask, like in these interviews where parents can ask their kids that invite these conversations without like conception of like, because I've seen it done the wrong way, be like, are you feeling okay about how your thighs look in that?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like I know the intent is like, do you have insecurities? Are you doing okay? How's your body image? But I also seen that conception. Like, well, it wasn't until you mentioned it.
And now I've got a complex. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, our interviews were like really focused in on like a specific research question. But I would start with positive first. What are the things you love about your body, right? And just have that conversation first. There's a whole different concept. It's called positive body image, right? And that's what we're trying to achieve with our kids. Like, I love my body for what it can do, not for what it looks like necessarily. Or I love my body even when it can't do what I want it to do. Right? Those are kind of things. So I always have conversations with my own children, and then in our research studies focusing on what do you like first, right? And then a soft question is, okay, I love to hear that. What are some things maybe you struggle with? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just open-ended, right? And most kids will share something, right? And then you can kind of have a conversation. Okay, where do you think that comes from? So really asking questions instead of lecturing. And instead of pointing out things like, yeah, you might not. My mother told me, all right, here we go. Mothers can do this. My mother told me I had a witch's ski jump nose once. A witch's ski jump nose, right? Thanks, Mom. It does kind of ski slope, I guess, right? But I will never forget that. And she was trying to have a conversation about body shapes and sizes and how they're good and how we're all different. But that comment has stuck with me my entire life, right? So really keep it open, really keep it positive, and be there. And also share, not everyone feels great about their body. That's normative. You're okay, right? And we can work on it. Okay, yeah, right there. And I think this might be our time for, we have time for one more question. Yeah. Yeah. What sport? And boys or girls? Okay. So that's a sensitive sport, right? It would be probably awkward if you're around like a bunch of girls in swimming suits and you're like, as a man, how do you guys feel about yourselves in swimming suits? Right? Just probably avoid that. Man, I might bring in a little bit of help. Yeah. So somebody who specializes in body image or a female coach or things like that. And you could just say, a lot of athletes struggle with body image. And I'd like to have that conversation because it's not one that's had as much as we should. This is not calling out anyone, but I suspect that many of you might be holding something deep. And I'd like us to create a culture where we support and lift each other up. and we're there for one another. That's maybe how, if I was giving this conversation, that's maybe how I would start it out, right? And then kind of open it up. Okay, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for your wonderful questions and your comments. I really appreciate it.